I think we're recording now. All right, high plane controls. All right, so I've created a new part. I've made sure I'm in inch pound second. All right. If I want to specify the material here, I can, although that's just for analytical purposes. It's not going to change anything about my geometry as we're working on this. So I'm going to go to the front plane because you guys know how I feel about the front plane. We're going to sketch out there. So I've created a sketch on the front plane. I want to make a hexagon. So rather than trying to draw a hexagon, I'm just going to use the polygon tool. You guys see that in the corner? That's going to let me specify a polygon of any number of sides. 6 is the best. Hexagons are the bestagons. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I'm going to center my hexagon. Again, you notice that this is going to be the center point and then one edge. If you look at the little tooltip that comes up, I want to center my hexagon on my origin because I always want my parts to be defined relative to the origin. I'll click again to place one edge of the hexagon, and then I've got my hexagon in place. I'm going to do that one more time just so you guys can all see it one more time. Again, I'm sketching on the front plane. Click on the polygon tool. Make sure my number of sides is equal to 6. You can change this to inscribed or circumscribed. Doesn't really matter. We're going to specify the width afterwards. Click on the center, or click on the origin for the center of the hexagon. Click again to specify the edge. And then I'm going to the Smart Dimension tool. I've already said I want the total width of this from opposite faces to be 1 inch. So I'm going to click on both of those sides. Click again to place the dimension and give it a value of 1 inch. Again, it's going to scale everything in the drawing to meet that. You'll notice I'm still underdefined even with that relation. I can actually rotate this around the center. So nothing is defining the location of that center. If I click on one of my edges and the center, I can use a vertical or a horizontal relation, depending which edge you picked, to make it locked. That doesn't really change the geometry at all, but it does just tell me that, hey, that was enough to fully define the sketch. And we generally want to have fully defined sketches before we move on. Any questions on making the hexagon? Everybody have a hexagon? I'm looking at screens and I see hexagons, so that's good. All right, so we want to extrude this out. So I'm going to go into Features, Extruded Boss Base. Everybody see that? And again, I want this to be the middle of my part to be where the parting line is. Because again, if I put that parting line on the middle, then it decreases the amount of distance I have from the edges of my pattern to the center, which makes it easier to pull out. Something like this, you might not care that much because I could have a very simple flat face on the opposite side if it was just a token like that. But if I'm having any geometry on at all on the top and the bottom, I really want to have that in the middle, right? Because it's going to make it easier to do, and I'm going to have complexity inside those molds either way. So rather than blind extrude, I'm going to use the mid plane, right? I'm going to make this a little bit thicker. Let's go 0.2 inches. Just so it's a little easier to see the drafts there. And then this option right at the bottom is the draft on and off toggle box. So when I click on that, it's going to add a draft to my part. And I can specify how steep I want the draft. And 2 would be the default. And you guys can maybe see that angle there. So you guys have probably seen a lot of injection molded parts that don't look like they have a draft angle because 2 degrees is really small, right? But most parts, that's enough. Now, in this case, I want that draft to be part of a decorative feature for my part. So 2 degrees is not sufficiently obvious. I'll try making it 20. And now you can actually see that, okay, that's got some angle to it, right? And if you want to make yours bigger, you want to do 30 or something, right? It doesn't matter. We're just doing this for fun, please. Make sense? Cool. Questions on that? No? All right. Let's accept that extrude. So now I've got my coin blank, which is kind of boring, right? I don't want to just have, it looks like a rupee or something from Zelda. Doo-doo-doo-doo. But I want to add some more decorative features to this. So that way I don't have the coin get too big. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut into the face, but I want to have this border because I like the stylization of that, right? So I'm going to start on one side. I'm going to click on one face, doesn't matter which one, of my token. I'm going to right click and I'm going to sketch on that face. With that face still selected, I'm going to do an offset and it's going to automatically get the entire hexagonal shape. So again, with this still blue, I'm going to go into offset entities and I'm going to reverse it so it goes in. Everybody see that? Also, the advantage of doing it like this, if I change that draft angle later on, that lip size on the top will automatically get bigger or smaller based off the change in the draft angle. So if I go back and say I want to make it a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, I can do that. I don't want this to be too big, mostly because I don't want the area for my FGCU to get super small, right? So I'm going to make this 0.05, just a very thin border on that. Make sense? All right, then I'll accept this. And now what I'll do is I want to cut extrude this into the face. So I'm going to go into my features, cut extrude or extruded cut. I don't want this to go all the way through. I actually only want it to go about a quarter of the way because I want to do the same thing on the opposite side and I want it to be solid in the middle, right? So if this is 0.2 all the way across, we'll do 0.05 as the actual depth. And again, I do want a draft on this one. You'll notice that the draft is making the part smaller, which is the same draft angle as I had before, right? I can flip the direction to have it go the other way, but if I did that, that would be suddenly very, very difficult for me to use a sand casting process to produce, right? I could probably do it with investment casting, but I couldn't do it with a sand or even with a permanent mold, you wouldn't be able to get that geometry. So make sure that draft is going inward, not outward. Depending on the thing you're actually making, sometimes you might want to use an outward draft if you're making like a hollow box or something, because then that would be taking that outside part for the bottom of it. Questions on that? I'm going to go back into the cut extrude just to show that one more time. I still have my outline for the center part, extruded cut, set that distance to 0.05. Again, added my draft to it. I'm using the same 30-degree draft angle. Again, if you want something else, feel free to go nuts. Accept it. Now I've got that nice kind of edge there. I want to mirror that, so I have this thing cut out on the opposite side. So I've selected the cut extrude and the front plane using the control click. So click on the cut extrude, control click on front plane, click on mirror. That's going to cut out the back side. Got that. And I just want to add some decorative text to this. So I'm going to add an FGCU to the front, and maybe we'll do like a 2022 on the back, right? Actually, you guys are probably going to graduate in 24, right? Maybe we'll do FGCU 2024. Anyone graduating before 24? Because you're not graduating next year, you're graduating the year after next, right? Some of you guys might have strange schedules where you're graduating before that or after that, but I think most of you will be graduating in 2024. So we'll put 2024 on it. All right, I want to put FGCU on one side and 2024 on the back. So I'm going to go to this new cutout plane. I'm going to start it there. I'm going to sketch. And you guys may expect that, hey, he's going to draw FGCU. No, I'm just going to type it, right? I'm going to go to the text tool. And I'm going to pick a point to start the text. Actually, I'll do that after the fact. I'm just going to do FGCU. I'm going to make it bold, not FGCE, FGCU. Right? And that's not quite big enough. So I'm going to go into my font option. So I'm unchecking use document font. You guys see where I got that text tool? Text tool is right here next to the ellipse. And typing FGCU. We can move it around after the fact. And I want it to be bold, bold. And I want to use a custom font that basically makes it as big as I can make it without it exceeding the size of my token. So let's try 0.2. That might fit. Let's try dragging it around. If I click on this point right here, I can move it and see if it'll fit. That doesn't quite fit. It's nice and centered though, so I'll mess with my heights until I get a height that works. So font, let's try 0.18. That looks okay. So I use 0.18. I might want to move it up just a little bit. If you want to get a little more technical with this, I could draw a line at the bottom and then specify dimensions for that. I can say, hey, I want this point to be some distance over. And I want this point for the start of my text to be some distance down. You know, 0.09 makes sense because I made it 0.08 tall, right? Maybe I want these lines here on the sides to be lined up a little bit better. So maybe make this 0.35. Oh, not 38, 35. It looks a little bit far to the right. 3.4, right? The text is always going to be underdefined as far as the actual text itself. Don't worry about that. Almost 100% of the time, if you're adding text to a part, it's decorative. You don't really care where it is or how big it is. It just needs to be legible, right? Questions on that? All right. I'm going to extrude this text out. Yeah, so you can move this dot around just by dragging it. And I can also add dimensions between the dot and my origin. So I can delete this if I want. Really the dot and anything else. So in my sketch tool, I can just grab this dot by clicking it and I can drag it around. Right? And then I can dimension that dot relative to whatever I want. So I did it to the origin. I made this 0.34. And I made the height from the origin down 0.09. Is that good? Any questions on that? And then I'm going to extrude this just like I would everything else. Go into features, extruded boss base. Again, I'm going to add my draft. Oh, it doesn't like that 30-degree draft. That might be too extreme. Let's make it 15. Yeah. You notice the 30-degree draft, because of the height of this, actually it collapsed before it got to the top. So that was a little bit too aggressive. I could also change the height. So if I made this 0.025, then I could use a higher angle here if I wanted to. Maybe not that high. Maybe 20. Yeah. You got to make sure it doesn't collapse before it gets to the top. That's a little too short for me though. So I think I'm gonna go 0.05. What did I do? 25? 0.05? Yeah. That looks okay. I actually like that. I'm gonna go with that. And again, I'm still not coming up higher than my surface of my part, right? And then I'll do something else on the back. I'll do the exact same process, sketch on the back, use the text tool, 20, 24. In this case, I want this to be the same font as the other side. So even if it fits, I'll use a slightly different or the same 0.18 for the height. Again, I did leave the sketch tool before I tried to move that dot around. Let's make this 0.25. Maybe 0.3, 0.28. That looks good. And we'll make this one 0.09 again. And we'll do the same extrude as we did on the other side. 0.5 with the draft, 20 degrees. So now I've got my little FGCU 2024 token. Kind of fun, right? And I can also throw this into, a 3D printer or something like that. This actually would not 3D print very well because I would need supports to hold up this top face. And so that would kind of give it a marred surface. So this would be a really easy part to cast or to mold, but a little bit more difficult to 3D print. I might be able to 3D print it on one of its sides. I don't know. We'll try it out. Questions, comments, concerns? Can you redo that last bit? No, everyone's good? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. And then if you guys have questions that you want to discuss, if you want to continue working on the part that we did very, very quickly in class on Monday, if you have questions about that, we can talk about those. That's okay. That's fine. Yeah. Stop recording.